Welcome everyone, Questine here with a discussion about Kislev in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, which Creative Assembly has explicitly mentioned in their end-of-year message, and specifically that they would feature some more substantial improvements as opposed to what they're planning on doing for, say, Siege or Cafe, though I think both Siege and Cafe do certainly need some updates, but Kislev absolutely need some significant updates, because not only are they a really badly designed race that is pretty much a pain to play by default, but they're also a completely broken race if you understand some of the game mechanics and how those work. But first off, let's talk about some of the issues that Kislev does have in their campaigns in Immortal Empires. I'm not considering Realms of Chaos in any way, shape, or form. First off, the issue is Kislev itself as a part of the campaign map. See, Kislev itself is fairly small. Now, this does have to deal with the design overall of the Immortal Empires map, where even the Empire, the way it is with distances between settlements and how small the geographic area is too small in quite a few ways. I mean, this wasn't necessarily a problem for, say, Kislev if there weren't so many Kislev factions in this area, because you have the Jersey Enclave, you have Prague, you have Kastalten, you have Katrin, you have Boris Ursus, hell, you even have a Stankia who wants to come over here to Kislev. That's kind of a problem. Then you have Frat, Zazel, Malachi, Arbol, Archeon, Trong. Like, this is the Thunderdome, if you will, the real Thunderdome of Warhammer 3 between factions. And that is kind of a problem. They keep adding factions with like Golgfang, Maneater being added with the latest DLC. Now, I understand that that probably can't be fixed because it would require a complete change, a complete overhaul to the size of the entire Immortal Empires map. But one of the things they could do, and I think that this is certainly something they should tackle, is with regards to special cities of Kislev. Because the problem with these special cities, you might think, oh, these are great, right? You can get things like the Talent Keepers Guild, get construction, get recruitment, etc. Yes, but the cities of Kislev don't actually feel worthwhile for an economic purpose. In fact, all the growth build and benefits you're getting there, realistically, when you consider just how much growth you can get from a regular tier 3 settlement, you're just kind of playing even, but really you're not, because you would have multiple settlements over here. So once you start getting structures over here in, say, the Southern Oblast, realistically you can grow the Southern Oblast faster than you can do, say, Kislev City or Erengrad, though granted, Erengrad does have the benefit of also being a port. Now, they did make a change with SOC in that they changed these provinces from only having minor settlements to actually having provincial capitals. But I think the Old World mod did things much better in that they put these special cities and also Skaven Blight in proper provinces. This makes these kind of cities much more useful because they're growing more, they're benefiting more economically. And that is certainly something I believe they should do. Like, remove the extra 2 settlements, because they did add 2 settlements in Shadow's Change. Remove those 2 settlements or put them as part of different provinces. And then maybe Kislev could have an actual fort settlement over here in Fort Jakova. But regardless, remove the extra settlements one way or another and make the river, Urskoy, Prague, the Cursed City, and the river as provincial capitals. This would make these cities significantly more useful for both Kislev and factions around here. Now, one thing worth pointing out about that, though, is because of the way Kislev's economy works, and I certainly do hope they change it so that we don't have Tier 5. Like, Tier 5 economic buildings are a complete waste of resources, so I do hope they change that. But unless they were to change that, I think, like, the caravan building would be something these cities could really use. Because the caravan building, believe it or not, is actually significantly more useful than the merchant guild hall. Sure, you get income from markets and all that kind of stuff, but consider the sheer amount of tradable resources you can get over here, plus 50% in a local province. and then you consider that Kislev can generate tradable resource, and you put that in, say, a province with iron, yes, you can potentially generate more money over there for caravans. But, you know, money is another issue. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But the actual provinces, the special cities, all that, don't feel that special. Or if they want to keep these cities as their own provinces, I think they should be able to grow easier. And they should also start higher level. All of them. Tier 2. Maybe even Tier 3 for Help It. By the way, this is an issue for Skaven Blight as well. And Help It. Like, when you have these settlements in single provinces, and they start Tier 1, and they're really good cities they want to grow very quickly, there's a lot of issues that come with that. Like, it affects Rot, it affects Ikklaw, it affects those campaigns in a fairly substantial way. So I think, like, that is something that CA should look to address just overall in the game, not just with regards to Kislev. Like, you can talk about Grom the Paunch's campaign and Massive Oracle also being a Tier 1 settlement to begin with in a single region province. The second thing that does need to be changed is the entire Ice Court mechanic. I would personally just throw it in the garbage bin because it's such a pointless mechanic to deal with. The way it works is you have to first unlock the slots in the Ice Court in order to train these Frost Maidens and Ice Witches. Now, there's various other benefits that you do get, like hero capacity or control, recruit rank, all that. But the entire Ice Court system is just such a meaningless waste of time that you shouldn't even engage in as a player. I'm not joking on this. Because all these traits that these Ice Witches and Frost Maidens can get are completely randomized. So here's what you do, and this is why this entire system needs a complete overhaul. You play around the cast campaign as Castalton. The reason I recommend Castalton is he can recruit them level 1. It might take longer. And yes, Rounds the Cast is a freaking pain, but what it does allow you to do in this specific campaign is, like, you can get a large selection of Ice Witches and a large selection of Frost Maidens that you can recruit. Like, just play like 40 turns as I did here on easy difficulty and get some actual useful traits. Because that's the annoying thing about these Ice Witches and Frost Maidens. There's a bunch of things that are completely freaking worthless. And then they're like stock. Yeah, that's great. But then there's things that are ridiculously strong. Like 1 hero capacity for Patriarchs. Minus 20% construction cost for all buildings. Minus 10% upkeep for infantry. And 15% recruit cost for infantry. And what you can do with these Ice Witches and Frost Maidens from a Realms of Chaos campaign, let alone other Immortal Empires campaign, is you train them. You get Ice Witches with these kind of traits, or Frost Maidens with these kind of traits like growth, control, various combat benefits, etc. Builder is probably the strongest one, because it does stack, so you can essentially get free buildings. And then you save them, and when you start a new campaign, as Kislev in Immortal Empires, you load them up. You don't have to spend 4 turns to unlock a slot, 8 turns to train them, and then you might get complete garbage in terms of the traits. You actually can get useful traits from turn 1. You start with 1 Frost Maiden capacity in a campaign, and obviously you can recruit as many lords. So you save them, and then you click the load character button here for heroes and lords, and that will just do the job for you. So that is ridiculously powerful, ridiculously good, gives you a lot of benefits. I mean, the entire load save character system is something that you can abuse in a lot of cases, to be sure. Though it is worth having an Ice Witch with Fraud's defeat trait, sure. But there are, not even the High Elves are in this situation where they can either get complete garbage in their lords and waste a lot of campaign time, or get from turn 1, if they use the load save character system, to get splendid lords. Like, the problem with High Elves, who also have an issue with this, is the idea that they require influence for good traits, but they can access those good traits in a natural way in a campaign. It's just RNG with the traits. Here, it's RNG with 3 different traits, and you can get 3 amazing traits, or 3 complete garbage traits, or a combination of, like, 1 amazing trait, 2 really completely useless ones, is certainly a very tedious system. Waste your time, and it's not worth engaging in. Like, you just play a 1 rounds of chaos campaign, you train a lot of these, and then you load them all in other campaigns, and you completely ignore training, spending the money on it, wasting your time on it. So there's a lot of issues with that. Yeah, this entire system needs a significant overhaul. The third thing to talk about are the Legendary Lords and their campaigns, their skill lines, their campaign effects, so on and so forth. One of the things you may have heard over and over again is how Kislev campaigns are supposed to be difficult, to which I reply, are you sure about that? Because I'm looking here at the turn 5 campaign as Katrin, and I'm like, no, that is not difficult. Part of the reason is that all these minor Kislev I factions can be confederated with no confederation penalty or cooldown, or if you're playing Astankia or Boris Ursus, you can confederate all the other Kislev factions, again, with no penalty, no cooldown. Katrin and Kastalten have the supporter system that limits their potential in their campaign, but it says something about the supporter system, which we'll get to in just a bit, that it is a rope around your neck that's limiting your campaign, specifically if you're playing Katrin, and just prevents you from getting Erengrad as quickly as possible. And I'm like, yeah, hero capacity for Frostmaiden, hero and Lord Recruit rank compared to Kislev is just ridiculous. Like, we can also talk about like how Katrin and Kastalten are incentivized to have different landmarks, and Kastalten is substantially better. We can talk about how Boris Ursus is the best out of all of them because he can actually confederate the whole lot of them. We can talk about how Astankia literally can teleport other Legendary Lords and trivialize every combat encounter in her campaign. It's not about difficulty, but that doesn't mean it's good design. If you play a Kislev campaign naturally, as Katrin or Kastalten especially, it can be painful, but if you abuse certain things, you trivialize it. And when you have that kind of dynamic, it isn't great. It is a problem Skulltaker has, in particular, because Skulltaker's in that kind of danger zone with Omens of Destruction, where he can have a really ridiculously broken campaign, or he can have a very tedious and boring campaign. And that is exactly the issue that Kislev has had since day one. And also, I just gotta mention this about Katrin. She's genuinely not worth even using as a Legendary Lord. Like, she's not a good combat fighter. Her magical capability is not great. Her diplomacy benefit is not specifically great. The only thing she's really good at is she can lead an army that's better than others because of that 8% ward save for her entire army. But magic-wise, she's supposed to be one of the most powerful mages in the setting. To give you an idea of how powerful Katrin is, there are a few people who have ever stopped Grimgor in the lore. Very, very few. Katrin did, with her magic. She didn't kill Grimgor, she didn't stop Grimgor himself. She literally froze in his entire army to death, and Grimgor was like, yeah, okay, I'm out. So Grimgor, who literally forced the dwarves of Karakadrin to hide behind their walls, was pushed out of Kislev by Katrin alone. There is a discrepancy over there, isn't there, between how she handles as a Legendary Lord and her magic, special skill line, etc., and what the kind of things she did in the lore, at least against Grimgor. And others, it should be pointed out, yeah, she got crushed by the end times, but everyone got crushed by the end times. That's just end times being end times, I suppose. So that is something that I think CA should look at, like these Legendary Lords, but I would say like Kastalten and Katrin do need a bigger priority. It's also a climate problem because they don't have Wasteland. Boris Ursus and Astankia do. Guess what? That means Boris Ursus and Astankia have a lot more of the campaign map to play around with, specifically the Darklands. Next up, we have to talk about an economy, or the lack of an economy for Kislev in Warhammer 3. See, Kislev has a worse income ratio from buildings than Greenskins, and that's post-patch after CA nerfed it, let alone pre-patch. Yes, you can trade, you can get tradable resources, you can get all kinds of benefits, but Kislev doesn't have so much of an economy as it has a bunch of modifiers that you can exploit as a player, and that's kind of an issue. Your base economic structure only gives you 100 for 1,000, so naturally it would take you 10 turns to make that back. But with construction cost benefits, with growth benefits, with income modifiers, and with a whole lot of aggressive play relying on looting, sacking, and trading settlements, you do end up making it work, sort of. And I say sort of because you can see how much money I have in this campaign over here at turn 22. Though I have 4 armies in this campaign, 3 full stacks, a 4th one with some better than average units over here marching to reclaim the Bay of Blades. There's a perspective that people had with the dwarves, for instance, before Fronts Decay came out. Oh, you just have to play the dwarves tall. No, you don't. You didn't. You had to play the dwarves in a hyper-aggressive way and take advantage of all these things in order to make it work. It's a similar situation. You want to make Kislev work? Play hyper-aggressively, defeat all your challengers as quickly as possible, because letting Fra, letting Azazel, letting the Norskans, and hell, after Omens of Destruction, letting Arbol build up, is a surefire way to lose a campaign. So if you want to win, and you want to be decisive in that victory, be extremely aggressive. Part of what helps with regards to that is the fact that the Norskans don't have an army that can defeat even your regular Cossars, let alone your armor Cossars. Part of it comes down to the idea that, hey, if you're playing Castalton, you can wipe out Azazel in front very quickly. Those kind of aspects. But yeah, the economy needs to be better. The construction costs for certain things, especially the landmarks in the special cities, need to be handled better. The special cities need to be worthwhile more, because they're not. Like, that's another shame. Like, the Kislev cities in the lore are supposed to be very, very rich. In reality, they give you one building with a lot of income. They do give you a lot of construction cost benefits, but they aren't generating a lot of money. And even things like Atomans, as I said, you have a bunch of income modifiers, but you're just playing catch-up to so many other races in the game. Not all of them, but the vast majority of other races in the game. And you kind of end up in a play style that is not really fitting to Kislev in the lore. Because, yeah, the Shield of Civilization, more like the guys who conquered the Empire. That's, by the way, no joke. One of the best things you could have done before Omens of Decay, actually, when they made a lot of terrain changes to Northscale Mountain and Frozen, the best thing you could do as Kislev would be to actually conquer the Empire. That has changed, but the dynamics of, like, sacking, looting, abusing post-battle loot, abusing these traits, that has remained the same. I do believe that is one of the most substantial things that does need to change in regards to Kislev, but it is not the most substantial thing. Because looking back at this campaign as Katrin, one of the things you gotta do as Kislev, and certainly the one thing I hope they change, is the requirement of 600 supporters for your short campaign victory condition. That short campaign victory condition requirement is actually what ruins both Castalton and Katrin's campaign, because free hero capacity for Kislev is a pretty damn big deal. But 600 supporters is like an end game level objective, because you will reach the long campaign objective earlier than you will reach 600 supporters. In all seriousness. In fact, even if you cheese this, there are, even if you cheese this to an extreme, you will probably reach the campaign victory condition of long campaign faster. Well, except wiping out some of the factions. But here's what you can do as Kislev. And you can do this as any faction, to be sure. But this is especially relevant for Kislev because of the supporter system that Katrin, Castalton, and even Boris Ursus have to deal with. To be fair, for Boris Ursus, you can just, like, ignore Urson and just invoke, like, just play with Urson early on, get 50 supporters, get some growth, then confederate all of Kislev, and then just keep Dash up all the time for the economic benefit that you have over there. But if you're playing Castalton and Katrin in particular, here's what you do. And that's what I did in that Castalton campaign. This is what I'm going to do in this Katrin campaign. You abuse, and I do mean abuse, every single system in the game. So here's an idea of what I'm going to do. I am going to trade Volksgrad to the Norskans, right? Get down one settlement, trade all of these settlements, Plesk, right? Just, you can ask the AI for money. This is a more of an inherent issue that you can just demand money from the AI that it doesn't have. But yeah, I can just trade all these elements over here, Yetkich as well, in this situation. And then because of a specific dynamic with regards to trading a settlement to a faction of a different race, you can then just, oh, let me declare war on this faction and just reclaim these settlements. You can do this in any campaign, to be sure, but outside of Kislev, the ridiculousness of this is nowhere near as big. The reason it's so ridiculous with Kislev is Urson. You invoke Urson, you get 5 supporters for each one occupying settlement. And that means when you're playing a campaign as Katrin, genuinely the best thing you can do is, let's say we take, we take the Ostermark, right? We trade all our settlements, take all their money in this situation. Never mind that we can trade one of these settlements back and forth, right? And just keep getting money and money and money, and crucially positive diplomatic relations. But let's just say we trade these settlements to Ostermark in this affair. And then because they are a different race, what we do here, we declare war on them.
I don't agree.
I will make it elegant.
Just as easily. Take all of this back.
The ice goes.
And then, because of all the positive relations we've built with them, we can even get a peace agreement with Ostermark. The more you do this, the more powerful you get. Like, you can do this with the Greenskins. Take all their money, trivialize this entire faction, trivialize anything that he could do to you. Just sell these settlements. Do it with Zavastra as well. It doesn't matter if they have a barracks or not. If they have a barracks, they'll trade you more with it. But every time you take a settlement, you will gain supporters. And the reason you're incentivized to do this, well, sorting out that victory condition. Abusing Confederation as Kislev, because again, you don't have any limitation on Confederation with the minor Kislev factions. That's how you get Prague in this campaign. That's how you get X, Y, and Z settlement in this specific campaign. That's how you solve your money issues in this campaign. And it's not just like, oh, I'll do this with X, Y faction. No, you do this. Well, a lot of factions take their money, and yeah, Azag might show up over here with the full stack. That is not a problem for me to tackle. Or, just, again, do it with Osland. It especially works well with minor factions, and I could get such a high diplomatic relations benefit with these specific factions that I could even get a peace agreement, or even, funnily enough, all the way to an alliance with these guys, while trivializing the entire supporter system. Keep doing this again and again and again. It's kind of funny, the multiplayer community realized you could do this long before a lot of content creators like myself realized you could do this.
My hand hovers close to my
And same idea, like Talabayam. Or even go all the way even further. Let's say we leave Fort Chakova for last. We sell Vitevo. The more regions in a province that you give to the AI, so we trade this settlement right here. We get any lord, that doesn't matter who he is, and now we sell this one as well. Get our money back. Declare war. Like, you're literally creating a situation and a dynamic where you're getting even more territory than what you started with. Again, it can be done as any race. it's especially relevant for Kislev because of this damn supporter system, their lack of money, their lack of capabilities in a campaign that they might have. And now, yeah, we can just even get an alliance with them, or maybe even get an alliance with Karl France. Yes, this is incredibly silly. I know.
Friends of the Empire, come.
Incredibly ridiculous, incredibly silly, and so very abusable.
The Snowbringer.
It does have repercussions, don't get me wrong on this. Like, it does have negative consequences associated with it, but hey, it works. And it works, and you even get growth out of it. Like, you even get more population surplus points. Yes, you do need to get a lot of these lords over here to make this entire thing function, but that really isn't a problem in any way, shape, or form. Regardless of, you know, supporters and all that, this does absolutely need to change. So the supporter system, the region trade combined with region trading makes it completely insane to do this as Kislev. And you can just keep doing this with faction after faction after faction after faction. And if you're going to, let's say, you know, the logical, so to speak, conclusion, like, hey, let's sell these settlements again over here to the Skaven. They might attack me, to be sure. They might, you know, go to war. They might create problems for me. But these aren't problems I can't deal with in this state of affairs. And then, yeah, just declare war on the Skaven.
No!
It is my duty.
We got another population surplus point. Because that's one of the problems. You start with a bunch of tier 1 settlements as Kislev. Because the AI gets, I think it's because when you do region trading, the AI has a lot of cheats with regards to population surplus, so I think they're taking advantage of that. Infinite money, infinite supporters, best way to play Kislev. This has to change. It's not fine. Like, just because you can do this is not fine in itself, but the fact that you're incentivized to do this is the bigger problem from my perspective. Cheese will always exist. But the problem is, when cheese is the best way to play a campaign by far, when the difference between using cheese and not using cheese is a quantum level difference, you get to a stage where it's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like, this is one of the reasons I would not recommend playing Kislev campaigns, because once you realize that you can do this, all campaigns are trivial, they're a complete joke, it becomes a, like, laughable campaign system. Funnily enough, Ostankia and Boris Ursus have much better campaigns because they don't have to do this. Like, that's the thing, like, those victory conditions matter, but Ostankia and Boris Ursus don't have to do this to achieve their short campaign victory conditions. You do if you're playing Catherine or Kristaltin. There we go. Christine signing out. Stay tuned for more.